Hello friends! So today I like to paint easy watercolor autumn leaves with you. So grab your art supplies. You find a list of the materials that I like to use in the description. I can't wait to get started. Let's go! Let's paint easy watercolor autumn leaves together. For this we are going to start by sketching the outlines of the leaves, starting with a very easy shape. And then I like to add in an acorn leaf. For this I always like to draw some curvy lines like this. Then another quite easy leaf, and the more difficult one has got some pointy bits. So I'm going to draw a line, and deciding that I like to have lines from here going in these directions, and then I like to have some triangle shapes right here. And then I'm going to add in like the pointy bits of the leaves. It's just if you start by creating these points first, then it's easier for you to balance out the leaves. And you don't need the points of the leaves to be perfectly at the same place everywhere. So I think I like to make this a bit thicker here, and I also like to readjust this one here, move it a little bit like this. So now I'm going to erase the lines in this leaf that I don't need. I'm using a soft eraser for this. And I'm using a brush to get rid of all the excess eraser thingies. I don't like to use my hand because there is always oil or grease on your fingers, and then the watercolor won't attach to the paper as good anymore. Now, before I start with painting, I like to get rid of the excess pencil or graphite on the other lines as well. So I'll be using a kneading eraser, and after this you might not be able to see my pencil lines as well. Just make sure that when you do this that you are still able to see, although very lightly, see the lines that you just drawn. So you're just pressing down your eraser on your paper, making circles like this, so you really get rid of the excess graphite. Alright, this is good enough. So now we start with painting. For this I like to use a round brush. I am using a size 6. And I like to start with some light yellow, bit green color for my leaves. So make sure that you've got enough water and pigment on your brush. And if you think that you've got too much paint, then you can add some water and spread out your paint like this. And now what I like to do, now while the paint is still wet, pick another color, in this case orange, and drop it in on one side of the leaf. And I like to pick another even more darker orange and then do that again. Just make sure that you've got enough water and pigment on your brush. So I'm doing another line like this. And you see now the paint is really nice flowing inwards. Now I like to add in some color in the rest of this leaf as well, only a bit lighter and a bit more playful, so that my shadow edge is still on this side. Now we're going to move on to our next leaf. For this, starting out with the same yellow-green mix as well, and just paint in the leaf, staying in within the pencil lines, and you can add more water to make this more transparent. The first leaf I painted with a thick paint layer, but it doesn't need to be as thick. So then use some water to brush it out. Now for this one, I like to drop in some green, following this line here. And some of the sides here as well. I always love this process, dropping in colors and see how it flows. Play around a bit, doesn't need to be perfect. And then what I like to do with this leaf is add a bit of ochre as well. A bit on this side. I like to add in a bit more yellow and even a bit more orange, just for it to match better with this leaf we've painted right here. And I like to add in some water here and then lift off some of the paint to make it a bit lighter in a few spots. Alright, so now it's time to let those two leaves dry and move on to our third leaf. So for this one, I like to start out with a darker orange, but I want to have a light wash. So I'm using a lot of water. So dark orange or maybe even red already. And now I am grabbing the same color but with more pigment, and I'm going to drop in the colors at some places. And I like to trace one side so it has got more pigment on that side, and just a little bit on the other side. Now I like to also drop in some orange. And I like it to be a bit darker, so I'm mixing some burnt umber and some red to again trace the lines. Time for our last leaf. I am starting out with some light orange, making it a light wash, light orange brown. I have been mixing my paints a bit, so I like to paint within the lines the entire shape, and then while the paint is still wet I like to drop in some more colors, just like we did before with the other leaves. And now it's time to get some darker color, so the burnt umber mixed with the red is a good choice, and to trace the edges of the leaf. And you do this very gently and let the paint blend in, do its own work. Also like to trace this line in the middle. Alright, so it's time to let these leaves dry. Alright, so now that the paint has dried, we can add some more details and washes to the leaves. So I like to start with this one right here. I'm going to use some dark brown red color to paint the stem. And I like to add some more burnt umber because I want it to be a little bit darker. And then I'm going to gently trace the line down the middle like this. And what I like to do right now is add some water and gently, so I've still got some burnt umber on my brush. I just made it a lighter wash and I'm cleaning off my brush a bit more and more and gently like spreading this out. So we've got a wash on one side of the leaf, really making this a nice crisp line in the middle. Now we're going to use that same color for this leaf, going to trace the lines in the middle. And we're going to do the same, add some water and then wash these lines out a bit. So that the lines get more crisp. Alright, I like to use a bit of this color to add some extra shapes around here. Now letting this dry, moving on to this one. Using the same color, I like to get a union in these 4 leaves. So I'm going to use the same mix of burnt umber and red to paint the stem of the leaf and then go down the middle here. Like to wash it out a little, and I like this leaf to have some thin lines. These lines are a bit more playful, a bit more curved, because acorn leaves are more round, curvy. And so blending out a few of those a little bit more. So now for this last one, we can also go down the middle here. I like to go to this side here because here we have that really beautiful blended color. So I like to go on this side and then just paint a wash on the entire side and then drop in a bit extra pigment down this middle line here. And just a really tiny bit on the side. Alright, time to let this dry. Alright, time to add some detail. So I'm going to grab a smaller brush and I am going to use some burnt umber to add in lines in the leaves. So for this one, I like to add some lines. Alright, so you need to make sure that you've got enough pigment but also enough water on your brush. I like the lines to be darker, so trying to paint with a lot of pigment. But if you don't have enough water on your brush, then you won't be able to get a smooth line. Of course, you can also trace the middle line with the darker pigment. And then we're going to do the same on the other side. Alright, moving on to the acorn leaf. So with the same brush and the same burnt umber brown, dark brown color, we are going to trace this middle line and these lines right here. And we can add a few thinner lines on some of these lines as well. Alright, so moving on to leaf number 3. So I like to use that same dark brown burnt umber to trace this line. And now I am thinking that I like to paint lines just like this one, but not as much. And let me see. Yes, like this. Also, they don't need to make it all the way to the other side. And now for this one, again using that same color, tracing the lines. And I like to add some smaller lines. So here we are, our 4 autumn leaves. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you're happy with the end result. Of course, I always love to see what you create, so please share it with me via DM or share it on your social media and tag me. And you can also use hashtag #CreateWithSandras. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and of course don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like to see more content. Alright, see you in the next video.